Hey friends, don't mind my voice. It might sound a little bit scratchy, but we're just gonna go with this. So it's Friday. Thank fuck it's Friday. And we made it through another week. So today we're gonna talk about buyer behavior. I love this conversation. I have this conversation quite a bit, I guess, with clients and different people. Um, because I think it's something that's really, I think it's very interesting and it's really helpful to know like what's changed, what that means for your marketing, and how you can make your marketing more effective looking at buyer behavior. So that's what we're going to talk about. And like, I've really wanted to bring this conversation forward for a bit now because things have changed so massively online since 2020, obviously, and the boom when everyone and their grandma was like getting online, starting a business, and even since like 2022, 2023, like a lot has changed for so many reasons. So, I'm going to talk about a few things that impact really the way people buy or decide to invest, as well as how they decide who they're going to buy from, and how that can impact what your marketing looks like. Some of this is also a really good mindset shift, again, around expectations and what we are expecting to happen versus what's actually happening right now, like how people are actually buying, as well as why. So that, you don't have these expectations around people buying your stuff a certain way when that's just like actually not happening. So we're going to shift a little bit of that. First off, let's go back to like 2020, right? Um, I don't know. Is that good? Is that bad right now? I almost like, I don't know if that's better, but whatever, we're just talking about it. So this is kind of like, that was like the pinnacle year of the online business. So, like online business, the popularity of it, like it wasn't it wasn't new. Like online businesses weren't a new thing, but because of COVID, because of the state of the world at that time, we were all online. Like you could still shop online for quite a long time at that time. Like it wasn't like it just happened. That part wasn't new, but a lot of people lost their jobs. We were kind of stuck inside for a while. The option really was to market online. And it wasn't, offering local fitness classes and putting up flyers at your grocery store down the street because you couldn't go there for a period of time. Um, but it's not that, online coaching and online businesses didn't exist before this, but they got way more popular because it was an option that people could do at the time. A lot of people lost their jobs. Like, they had to find something. Many popped up. I started my fitness business online at the time. And it was much easier to sell because it was kind of newer and people weren't as familiar with it as they are now. Like it really, the way online businesses and online, especially coaching and things like that, it really wasn't, well, it wasn't nearly as well known and popular as it is now. And even like you ask people in your regular life, they aren't familiar still with a lot of the things that happen online. Like if I talk to my husband about it, he's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Like it's not, even though it's something that's very familiar to us, it's still not very like mainstream. But it was even more so new at that time. And it was like the massive, like shiny object of those couple years, right? And so you can kind of, people could have a lunch for like 5 days and it would fill up. People would also see everything that you were posting about. Like we weren't so worn out over social media at the time. It was just so much different in a lot of ways. And in some ways, it was kind of easier. People grew audiences faster, kind of like you still had to know what you were doing. That's the thing. It wasn't just that it was like at that time, it was just easier. You still had to know what you were doing. And none of this is to say that you can't do that now. It just looks a lot different than it did then. And like even the way that we post on social media has totally changed. Like I can't remember. I don't even know if we had stories then. Like I can't remember when those came into play, but there's even like things like that, those kind of updates. And when you think about those kind of things, it's really interesting because like that's something that I know for me when I go on social media, like I prefer looking at stories over like scrolling the feed personally. But at that time, I don't even know if we had stories. Like there's just so many things that have really changed. So, in terms of buyer behavior, what has changed? Also, everything. Even if I would have recorded this episode like 3 to 4 months ago, it would be different because the world is also changing so much right now and so fast. And that all affects buyer behavior as well. But there are a few really key things that I want to talk about and that I think are really important. So there's like a lot more that goes into this past this, but I wanted to focus on a few things so that this wasn't like hours long. So people, for the most part, are more savvy buyers. It's not like in 2020 where like things were new, everything was like, oh my God, this sounds so great. People are familiar with these things. They aren't jumping at things the first time that they see them for the most part. They want more information. They want to know that you know what you're talking about and that you can actually help them. And I'll talk about this more in a second, but it's partly because many people have had really bad experiences online and they've gotten burned. Like that is a big part of it. And obviously in 2020, that was not the case. Most people had not experienced like online programs and things like that. Like some people had, but not the same as now. Also, just due to general inflation, like, and this will continue on as time continues, right? Due to that and what's happening in the world, I could talk right now, people are tending to hold on to their money a bit more. That doesn't mean that no one's buying. And I've heard this a little bit. That's not what it means. People are still buying, they are still investing, but it means that they are making more informed decisions about what they are buying and who they are buying from. So that's really important to remember. So going back to many people have been burned. I don't know of hardly anyone who doesn't have a story of a bad experience with someone online, unfortunately. Like this pisses me off, but it also reminds me that those of us that do our jobs really well and run our business with like actual integrity and help our clients, it does really mean that we will come out on top. And I think that that's something that's really important to remember. And it is something like I've struggled with a lot because I can get stuck in the being pissed off. And especially when I see like stupid shit online, that's a lot of why I don't scroll a lot online because there are things that just piss me off and I don't want to see it. But I think that there's definitely a time to call it out for what it is. And there's a time to just step up and say, you know what? I'm someone who can help you and who does truly want to. So it's just knowing this is a factor also that's affecting the way that people are investing. They want to make sure that they're not going to get burned again. Another thing, it is really hard to sell off of like one post, one story, one anything. I don't care what anyone tells you. The time from someone seeing your account or seeing your content becoming a client has lengthened. It's generally longer. And this is something that's frustrating for a lot of people. Like you want fast results, you want things to happen. But the thing is, like, it's really not happening that way for most people. So it's kind of nice to know that, like, you're not alone in that. There are not many people right now, if anyone that I know of, that's just like ringing in the clients off of one post. Like, they aren't just like posting one thing and all of a sudden they have like 10 clients. Like, that's just not happening. And I mean, did it ever happen? I don't know. Maybe at one time, but it's also the next point. It maybe did more so at one time, but now going into our next point, the online space is way more saturated. This is not a bad thing. So many people hear this and they're like, oh my God, well, then I'm never going to make it. And like that means that I'm never going to be successful. No, that's not what it means. And it's not just saturated with business owners, it's just like saturated with people in general. There's a lot more going on. There is so much online that like even when you think about this, okay, so back in 2020, 2021, when you like scrolled down your feed, you would probably see like one of your friends shit that they're posting. You would see like three posts from them when you like scrolled, let's say like 4 or 5 times, right? Now, if you do that, you might see someone that you follow like one time, right? There's literally just so much more online. The algorithm has changed. Like everything is so much different. It's just not the same. So those are kind of like the biggest differences right now. So how does that impact your marketing? First off, the very first thing, we have to let go of how it was. Like that doesn't matter. We talked about it. It's good to like whatever. It's fine to talk about. We can't stay stuck there because like we can't go back in time. We can't do that. It is not like that now. We need to focus on what do we need to do now to get the results that we want. And I have this conversation multiple times with clients because they will come and say to me, like, why can't it be like when da da da, or when all I had to do was launch for 5 days and I'd have multiple people reaching out, or, my launches were only a week and it was whatever. Doesn't matter. I know. Used to be like that, but it's not going back to that. So we're not focusing on that because like that's not going to do anything for you. We don't need to focus on that, okay? We're moving forward. We're going to focus on what we need to do now. So, because people are more savvy buyers, you need to show them you know what you're talking about. This means providing value. And I don't give a flying fuck who says don't do educational posts, value posts do nothing. Like, that's literally the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, that's so, I don't know why people say this. Like, how do you let people know that you know what you're doing? I just, I don't, I don't know how else you do that unless you tell them. Um, I, that's the only way. You need to give value first so that you can build trust so that someone will buy from you. It does not happen the other way around. Like you don't expect someone to buy and then build trust with you. Like, is that the way that you buy? And sometimes I will ask clients that as well. I'm like, think about the way that you buy. Okay. Would you buy from someone not knowing that they can help you? No, like you wouldn't, right? So you can't expect other people to do that. And this doesn't mean that you work with someone like one on one for free for weeks and then ask them to start paying you or like something crazy. Like, that's not at all what it means. But the days of these like master classes where it's marketed as like, you're going to learn the 3 secrets to being a millionaire tomorrow. Like, not that that was ever going to happen, but I've seen things similar to that. But those kind of things, and it's wrapped up as that, but it's actually like a pitch for their program where you learn nothing in the master class. Like, that's over. We can't be doing that. We can't be doing these like pretend master classes that we say that we're going to teach people stuff, but we don't actually, and we're just pitching programs. Like, that's no, that should never have been a thing. That's awful. Don't do that. Like, you can teach people things and they will still buy from you. You're probably going to make more sales if you teach people things. It's just, yeah. And you're going to have to answer questions before people buy a lot of the time. That's normal. That's totally normal. What the thing that's not normal is the messaging online that's made people think that anyone who asks a question is being difficult. That is fucking not normal. Like, I don't know. So many of these things are just like so batshit backwards. It's just like sometimes when I'm explaining this, I'm just like, man, it's crazy to me. But anyways, that's for because people are savvy buyers, that's what we need to do. And this goes very much along with people haven't been burned. Like, it's very similar. People want to know that you aren't going to do that to them again. Like, they want to make sure that if they invest in you, it's actually going to pay off this time and it's not going to be a repeat of another bad situation. This also means it usually takes people longer to warm up, not always. And this is the other thing. So, this is where like I like this conversation because there are nuances to it. There are still outliers. And especially when we're thinking about this from like a psychology perspective, there will still be people who are naturally going to buy faster than others. That's just like their normal makeup. That's just how they work, right? And it's kind of like this can also be impacted though, because sort of like the nature nurture thing, right? When we've had these bad situations that are impressed on people, that's now resulted in their natural behavior of potentially like faster buying slowing down because of these bad situations that have impacted that. And now, it's changed it somewhat. So building trust is huge. Like that's a huge thing. People want to know they're not going to get burned again. So, like, the whole value thing is just, it really means a lot. This is why I do free calls with people all the time. I do free trainings with real value, all of that, so that it builds that trust before the investment, so that you know that I know what I'm talking about. You're not going to come to work with me and be like, oh shit, I just got myself in another like bad situation again. No. All right. So, because not many people are buying immediately, this means launches often need to be longer. Everyone hates this, but it's not a bad thing. I I really try to get clients, especially looking at these things as just facts, right? Because at the end of the day, like, okay, so your launch is longer. What are you like? Are you going to not run your business after 5 days? Like, you're still running your business anyways. So, does it matter whether your launch is 5 days, 3 weeks? What's the difference? I know, like, there's a cutoff period, but there should still be people enrolling in that time. So, it's not even the aspect of like you're only getting the money at the end or something weird. Like, these are kind of mind games, I think, that we play with ourselves. But the fact that it's longer, it's not a bad thing. It's simply a fact. And if that's what the market is dictating, then that's how we need to shift marketing efforts so that you can get the results that you're wanting. Like, that's kind of how you have to look at it instead of being so stuck on, but I really want to do 5 day launches because that's just what I want to do. And I don't want to do it for that long because I hate posting about it for that long. Well, do you want the results that you want? Or do you want to do your 5 day launch and probably not get the results that you're looking for? I mean, you can do it, but that's kind of your other option. So instead of 5 day launches, you might need to extend that to 3 weeks. You're probably going to, maybe even more. This goes along with the fact that it's saturated online. Less, like, people are less likely to see your stuff right away, daily, whatever. You need to post it more. If you only do a 5 day launch, it's just not enough to get out to your audience effectively. Like, it's really, really not. And even if we look at like something like 3 weeks, and let's say that I have had clients who post like 3 times a week, and let's say you're doing a launch for 3 weeks, then you're almost back at the same thing. Like, you're going to have to extend that out even more because the number of times you need people to see your stuff, it's going to be more. They're not seeing your stuff enough, right? Another thing that I really like to think about, and this is one that I love bringing up for people because I think that it shifts a lot of things, but who your audience is. Like, for me, it's business owners. We're online a lot. We're online all of the time. Try not to be. I'm only online as much as I have to be because I don't love spending all my time online unless I'm talking to people. Like I love talking to people in the DMs online, that's fine. But you're more likely to see what I post just due to the fact that you're online more often, right? But let's say your ideal client is a busy mom. Okay. Sure, she might scroll for a bit at night. She might also be distracted. She might not go on every day. She might go on different platforms every day. So if you're only posting your offer or your launch or whatever for a few days, the likelihood that she's going to see it at all, way lower. And it's all these factors that are so good to consider because that's where the mindset piece comes in. And when you can think of some of this in that way, this goes like kind of beyond the buyer behavior thing, but it is still it's still relevant to this because it's the way that like that ideal client would potentially buy, I guess, you know, but they would have to see it so many more times. So it's adjusting your marketing plan to making sure that they actually see it. And when you can think of it in that way, it's not just that no one bought or no one saw your stuff or it was a horrible launch. Like you can actually take a look at this. Think about if you marketed to your ideal client in a way that even allowed them to see it. Was it optimized for them? Because if not, it's not like that's your fault and like whatever, but it's noticing that fact. That's an easy fix. This is the other thing that I always like to remind people is like these things are easy fixes. This isn't like something that's really hard, but if that's the case, that's something that you can fix. And it's not that just no one wants what you're offering. You just have to shift the way that you are actually marketing it and thinking about like the way that they're buying. They haven't seen it enough. And I think that the buyer behavior conversation is so interesting in this way because, like, so often we tend to blame ourselves for like launch failures when there are so many other factors that you can be looking at. There are just so many things that you can look at. And I didn't even go into like, wow. And it's not really part of buyer behavior, but talking about like launches specifically, there's data, there's like so many things that you can look at and little shifts that you can make that can make such a huge difference. And it's not just that like your launch sucked or you suck at launching or whatever the story is that, you kind of make up around it. It's often not that. So there's so many other things that we can look at. This has been kind of long. I don't know. But I hope that gives you a good idea on some things to consider around buyer behavior. You'll have to let me know. And of course, there's always like more that I can go into, especially when I work with you one-on-one and know your business. So that is something that you're interested in. I do have a free recurring revenue strategy call where we can look at all of this together. And in this call specifically, you will walk away with 3 tangible action steps that you can implement now so that you can be on your way to making 5 to 10K and above months on repeat. And yes, on repeat, because we like consistent income, not just one-time cash infusions. That's what I'm like really on about instead of just like, ooh, look at me, I had the big cash month. No, we want this like recurring. That's why it's also the recurring revenue strategy call. So I'm leaving the link in the show notes so you can book a time for yourself there. And I'd love to hear your thoughts and takeaways on the episode. I would greatly appreciate if you could leave a 5-star rating and a review. And as always, I will leave you with go after everything that you fucking want and be unapologetic about it.